Hi Fox, how are you doing? A very interesting second round we had today at the candidates tournament. Just one draw, the game between Topalov and Anand, but the other three games ended with a decisive result. Aronian beat Mamedyarov, Svidler beat Andreikin, and in the game we're gonna see in this video, Kramnik is going to win against Karjakin. So very interesting game this one, quite exciting, with lots of surprises in the opening and quite unbalanced and interesting middle game. And well, by the way, I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories, so I know they are both Russian and Karyakin's last move seems rather rather bad one, but I'm not going to doubt about their professionalism. So that said, let us go with the game. So Kramnik is white here, Karyakin is black, and we have a Queen's Gambit accepted. So during the live stream of the game, well, in the internet, I was reading people saying that Karjakin had been playing the Queen's Gambit accepted all his life. I was kind of surprised he didn't go for the Nimzo-Indian, Queen's Indian, something he goes for. He has gone for every time I've seen him playing. So I looked it up in the database, and it's true. He has played like 10, 15 games, maybe 20 against strong GMs with the Queen's Gambit accepted, but yet this is not his main opening as black at all. So this must be a kind of a surprise. I think I consider it a kind of a opening surprise for Kramnik. At least it should be. So Kramnik is not going to be behind. He surprises Karjakin as well. He normally plays knight f3 against the Queen's Gambit accepted, but today he plays the more aggressive and direct e4. So here we have a very main line: knight f6, e5, bishop takes c4, knight b6. Now both bishop d3 and b3 are very sound main lines, and I guess it's a matter of taste to play one on another. Kramnik goes d3, knight c6, of course, taking on d4, not very likely to happen in a GM game. The queen is hanging, discovered the attack, and the game is over. So knight c6 is more appropriate. Now black is threatening d4 seriously, so a couple of ways to defend it. Kramnik chose bishop e3. The other absolutely much more popular and very main line is knight e2, so that after bishop g4 white can play f3 and not having his knight pinned. Now usually black plays bishop e6, and after knight bc3, queen d7, white will castle short, black will castle long. An exciting game usually appears with opposite side castling. And I recall concretely a game, if you want to take a look at that, Morozevich versus Nakamura a couple of years ago. I don't recall exactly the year. I think it was a Tal Memorial game. A nice game it was from this position, I think. The reason why knight f3 is not that great, not considered to be that good, is that this bishop g4 pin is a little annoying for black. Now lots of pressure on d4, etc. So there we go, bishop e3, black plays knight b4, exchanging his knight for the light squared bishop of white would be, of course, an achievement for black. Why not? Here white plays bishop e4 and f5. As bizarre as it could seem, this is quite theoretical, and in each and every occasion e takes f6 had been played. Now e takes, knight c3, black still plays f5, bishop b1. Now the bishop can retreat without being exchanged. The knight on b4 goes to d5. Now knight f3, knight takes, f takes, for instance. And well, some games still have been played with this line, quite playable position. Concretely, I have a couple of games, and all of them have been played by 2700 plus GMs with white, like Tomaszewski, Mamedyarov, Dinglier, and Jakovenko. So an interesting position and perfectly sound, it seems. But this did not happen, as after f5, Kramnik basically plays the novelty of the game. I think at least in my probably outdated database, a3, which is the move he played, is a novelty. So now a couple of options for black. Karjakin chose which seems to be the most correct one, to exchange pieces, but he has a couple of retreats possible. So first going to d5 seems pretty logical. Now bishop would take on d5, knight take, and now knight e2 to stop probably f4, and well, just developing pieces. If knight takes, f takes, and just a playable position with a little bizarre pawn structure in the center for white, but still interesting position. Black has bishop pair, but we'll have to develop them. We will not be able to develop them that easily, so interesting position. Another option for black was to go back either to c6 or a6. In both cases, I think white will go back to bishop d3, and now for instance e6, and this is like I think this is better for white. This is kind of a French position, French defense position, but a dubious one for black, as he doesn't have the c pawn available to play c5 at the spot. His bishop is even worse than in the French defense. He has a dubious pawn structure on the king side, so this must be better for white, but still, I guess, possible to play. Instead, f takes e4, as I said. Now Kramnik takes on b4, black plays d6 to control basically the d5 square, I guess, and to give his bishop on f8 a way to be developed. Now knight c3, bishop takes b4. Black allows this little check on h5, as he has g6. And after that, queen goes to g4, attacking a little on e6, on e4. Really similar to, in some ways, to a French defense position. Here black, Karjakin voluntarily gave up the bishop pair at once. He took on c3, and after that he plays queen d5, trying to defend it everything, developing the queen to the middle of the center. But certainly he's going to have some problems early from this stage. Basically, his bishop on d7 is going to take some time to be developed, and mainly his king is going to be a problem. He's not going to be sure where to put the king, because either king side and queen side seem dangerous places to keep the king. So is going to be his main concern in this game for Karjakin. Now knight e2, quite logical moves here. Black develops bishop d7, white castles, and as I said, black's king is a problem. It's not entirely clear what to do with it. But on the other hand, if he manages to protect it and not fall apart doing that, I mean, if the white's possible attack is not strong enough, he has an a passed pawn here on a7, and in a very very long end game, this could be a potential threat for white. So kind of double-edged position. I still would prefer a white, of course, here. Now black decides to play queen c4. Of course, castling long, you would just give up a7, and this must be bad for black. So rather queen c4 seems better, although, well, it's kind of just developing a little bit better the queen, preparing the bishop to put on c6. Knight goes to g3, although it's leaving a c3 ampere. You're threatening to take on e4, and it's not entirely clear if taking on c3 is harmless for black. If he takes, now knight takes e4, for instance, and this should be very nice for white. The queen, of course, is attacked, but the knight could be really a monster piece on f6 or even on c5, depending on the position. So dark squares are really very very weak, especially f6 and c5. So taking on c4 doesn't seem the best thing to do. Instead, bishop c6, improving the bishop, is okay. Here, after taking a good time to think, Kramnik decides to go for rook a5. Sorry. He has some open lines in the queen side, and he's going to take advantage of them to attack this a little bit wildly placed queen on c4 to try to create weaknesses and create something there. Surprisingly enough, Karjakin decides to castle here after rook a5, and now things could go really flashy here. In a previous comment I said that short castling long wouldn't be that great because rook would have on a7. Nothing that much has changed, so taking on a7 is still possible. But Kramnik didn't play that. He went rook c5, attacking the queen. So let us take a short look at the obvious move. What if rook takes a7? Well, I guess the answer is knight a4. And now, well, more or less the threat is to play king b8 and if rook a5, b6, etc. So white has available this check, and if king d7, rook takes, it's an unclear position pretty much. I think black has kind of regrouped and these pieces are quite coordinated, and white should be careful not to just lose control of the position, because his pieces, his queen, his knight are on the king side and may become a little bit useless, and black could coordinate good central pieces to take control of the game. Instead of rook a8, say another move like, I don't know, rook a1, kind of the threat of black against in compensation for the a7 pawn is to play king b8, and after rook a5, b6, white will have to sacrifice some material, as if he would have to do after king b8 directly, taking on a4, bishop takes, knight would take on e4, but still, once again, unclear and unbalanced game. Very interesting one. So Kramnik decided rather to go for rook c5, attacking the queen. Now the queen went to b3, and an interesting move, c4. Now the queen is not protecting e6. The queen is obviously threatening to take it, and the pawn by itself it's pinned. So kind of a d5 advance would be a threat because the pawn is pinned, etc. So lots of tactical themes here, lots of tactical possibilities. Instead of c4, the engines are suggesting more direct approach with rook takes c6, sacrificing the exchange and trying to open up black king's position. And after this, well, the protector of the e4 pawn has gone, so white takes with the knight on e4, threatening to go, for instance, to c5, and the knight would play a major role in an attack against black king, for instance, say h5. Interesting move. Queen e2 seems to be better, and using the light squares to get to the queen side, try to hunt black king. So if white takes on g6, black could more or less force a draw. Remember, e6 is protected, so queen f7, rook f8, etc., more or less forcing a draw. But if queen e2, queen c4 would probably happen. Exchange of queens would be in black's favor, of course. He is material up. The attack, white attack, would be stopped. Queen c2, now for instance h4, trying to create counterplay, h3, but g5, and if rook a1, still g4. But here a mistake, for instance, would be to take on a7, because after g takes h3, white just doesn't have any check or anything concrete really against black king, and it's now it's black who is attacking. So for instance, if g takes h3, rook hg8 check, knight g5 must be played. While black could have the idea of doubling rooks here. Instead, a big blunder will be, for instance, king h2, because now queen f1, and the queen is very, very active, and checkmate is very near to be done, to be made. So really, just to illustrate how unclear the position could get and how sharp this could be, black could have his sources of counterplay against a white king, but still the position always a double-edged one, and it was really interesting to sacrifice the exchange on c6 right away. But okay, instead c4 always has his own ideas. Karjakin plays king b8, getting away from the pin. Now white takes on e6, the pawn is not protected anymore. Rook d8, the queen goes to h3, knight takes c4, and now white sacrifices on c6. B takes c6 and knight takes c4. Exchange down, but white has quite an attack against black king, so really an interesting position. Kudos for Kramnik for going for the attack. Knight b6, knight goes back to his best square, as now he must defend his king. Knight c5, of course attacking the queen. The knight is really looking well on c5, has lots of squares, lots of potential there. Queen d5, and now rook c1. Well, the c file doesn't seem that bad place to be, but why not rook a1? For instance, if just a move like rook ef8, a more or less normal looking move, queen g4, and light squares are like kind of highways leading to black king, so this could be interesting. Still, well, rook c1 was played by Kramnik. King a8, Karjakin doesn't make attempts for serious counter plays. He just tries to defend the position. Knight a6 with an obvious threat of forking king and queen. Now king b7, knight b4, attacking both c6 and the queen on d5, sorry. Black queen goes to f7 and queen g4 finally. Once again, light squares are very weak, and the queen will take advantage of them to attack, to get in to the queen side and join the attack against the black king. Knight d5, centralizing a piece, trying to stop it, but knight takes c6. Here rook e6, the rook tries to join the defense. Knight a5 check, king a8. Instead king b8, now queen e2 will be played. And if rook b6, for instance, knight c4, rook b7, wouldn't be that clear how is white going to progress in the attack, as the rook and the knight are going to do a good job defending. But instead, and there it goes, material for the conspiracy theories fans to conspirate. King a8 seems much worse. Now queen e4. Suddenly the knight is pinned, it's attacked, so rook b6. Now a kind of an obscure move by Kramnik, g4. Probably its only idea is to stop black from playing queen f5 and exchanging queens. But Karjakin kind of gives the favor back, h5. Now white's advantage is already too big, and Kramnik just doesn't fail to demonstrate it. Rook c5 attacking the knight. It must be protected by the rook on d8. Now knight c6 attacking it. And basically black has to give up the exchange back. Rook takes e6. If not, rook d7. Now e6 is a fork, much worse for black. So Karjakin took on c6, rook takes c6, h takes g4, but now rook f6, attacking the queen. Seems even stronger, bishop g5, attacking the rook on d8, and if rook b8, for instance, now rook c5, and the knight on d5 can hardly be defended. So if c6, rook takes c6, and the only chance black has is to liquidate into a much worse endgame with queen f3, forcing the queen exchange. Queen takes, g takes, and well, a little threat of checkmate, of course, on the back rank. But after something like h4, this endgame is much better for white. In fact, on these strong super GM levels, black would probably resign, because white has a couple of strong passed pawns. The one on g6 is very weak. The king on a8 is kind of stuck there, very weak. So this is absolutely crushing for white at those levels. Instead, rook f6, well, attacking the queen is also a strong move. Queen h7. Now bishop g5. Note that taking on g6 is not an option, as now the knight on d5 is not pinned anymore, so knight could take on f6. But bishop g5, now having possibilities of discovered attack against the rook on d8. But now queen g8, of course, not a great move at all. And this is one of the sources of of commentaries about those conspirations of the Russians and everything. Rook takes g6, double attack with the rook against the queen, with the bishop against the rook, and after 39 moves, as we have reached now, not just reaching time control, just move ahead of that. Karjakin resigns, the game is over, Kramnik wins and joins the leader in the candidates tournament. So there he calls a nice and interesting game here. 3 decisive results today, hoping for some more interesting and exciting games. Thanks for watching.